All right, welcome to Photography After Hours. We're here on our third or fourth, maybe fifth episode. We just are losing track today. So we're out here and we're going to be talking about watermarks and are they effective on the internet? All right, so watermarks. I'd like to introduce our guests today. We have our same guests as always. We have Sprague and Susie and Scott, and my name is Nick. And we're going to be talking about watermarks and are they effective in today's internet and putting your stuff out on Facebook and social media. Are they actually helping you save your work from theft? So we're going to start off with someone different, not Sprague. It's going to be Susie today. So Susie, in this topic and all the stuff that's been in the news recently with National Geographic, how this image was taken and used as a Creative Commons license and used as a cover, and all this stuff. Would you or would you not watermark, or do you believe in watermarking?
I do for certain purposes, but I don't think that it protects your image from being stolen, from being repurposed without your express permission, never mind compensation, because we can easily remove things like that from images. And there are instructions out there that people post on how to remove watermarks.
That was a big controversy with someone's senior pictures. They posted up all these proofs of senior pictures, and one of the teachers put up a how-to video of how to remove it so they could steal the photographer's pictures and not pay for your senior photos, which is just totally wrong, by the way. They're like, boo. Like, we work and we pay money for these DSLRs, take classes, workshops, everything to make money. And then, how would he like it if someone taught a, class on how to learn physics without actually taking his classes? He'd be out of a job. So, Scott, what are you feeling on this topic? Should people out there be really obsessed with watermarking, or should they not care, or somewhere in between?
I don't care. Personally,
did I ask him if he cared?
I don't watermark my stuff. I used to, and I realized it was additional work, and it took away from the photo. I'm trying to put art out there, and I want people to focus on art, not my watermark. If you're going to put it in an unobstructive place, it's going to be in a lower corner somewhere where people can easily crop it, people can easily Photoshop it out. You can put it right smack over the middle, but then you've got a crappy photo with a watermark on it. It's horrible. It takes away from your image. So personally, I don't care. Is there a possibility people can steal my work? Yeah, people could steal my work.
I steal his work all the time. It saves me tons of time photographing, buying equipment. I'm selling my camera now, so I can just steal his stuff.
Excellent wedding photographer.
Right. The guys over at, I saw a video blog by the guys over at Linen Jersey, the SLR Lounge guys. They did a video about this very topic because apparently a lot of people steal their artwork. A lot of other wedding photographers steal their work and represent it as their own work, and they get jobs based on that work, and then they can't create work similar to what they're selling other people. And so, that's an issue. That's always going to be an issue.
Well, that's a whole nother ethical debacle there with that, stealing work to represent what you can't do. That's even bigger. It
happens to the best wedding photographers out there. Jerry Gionis gets his work stolen all the time. Yeah. Because his work is phenomenal. But how many people can actually reproduce Jerry Gionis' work? Yeah. Not very many. And so my thing is that people are eventually going to get themselves busted because they're working unethically and they're not able to reproduce what they're so they're going to get called out on it.
Well, we've had to call people out. I've gotten emails from people even on the pack boards of like, hey, this photo is not the real person's photo. It went on there, and all the photos have different watermarks on their Facebook profile. We've had to delete people from their group, which is ludicrous. Why would you want to go in a group? Doesn't make any sense to me. Let's go in a group and get lots of likes for photos that I stole. The whole process is kind of convoluted. But Sprague, there's a whole group of people out there, a whole very large group of people that are anti-watermarking. They won't even like you or be friends with you if you watermark your photos. What's your feelings on that? And is that going too far to the extreme now?
Well, I think that they're probably being realistic. I think as the entertainment and music industry found out, anything that can be digitized can be copied, modified, or stolen. And the difference here is that when you've got Sony Entertainment coming after you, it's pretty easy to prosecute an individual for taking and distributing their copyrighted work. In this particular situation, you've got an individual that has to pursue either an individual or in what we were talking about before, National Geographic, for unlicensed use of their work. But I think the bottom line is when anything you take is essentially copyrighted, but until you actually file a copyright with the Copyright Office, your abilities to take recourse on somebody for using your work are limited. If it is an actual copyrighted image and you can demonstrate that somebody did take it for commercial purposes and you send them the notice to take it down and they don't take it down, then the fine automatically goes to $125,000 to $150,000, and that's pretty much dialed in.
So steal our photos if we copyrighted them, so we can make lots of money.
The thing is finding out if somebody's actually taken it.
Sure.
And there's a lot of ways of doing that.
I know Jay Beckman in our group has a lot of problems with that.
Right.
He takes phenomenal aircraft photos and finds them everywhere, and he's always fighting people to get them taken down. And I don't know if he's
properly
actually
credited or compensated, and
So Susie, with that, isn't everything really in this day and age so-called watermarked? You know, you buy a Mercedes, it has a hood emblem. You watch the NFL, it has the logo in the corner. Everything is trademarked and watermarked, and you know, maybe it's not called the watermark. Do artists not sign their paintings? So why is it so controversial for a photographer to sign their painting and have their photography out there?
Well, I think there are a few arguments, and Scott raised one in particular, which is from an aesthetic perspective, it detracts from the image, or it can be considered a detractor. I think that there are some cases where I would prefer to have the watermark on there, especially if it's a photo that's going to get passed around a lot, particularly in social media. I kind of like to have my website address on there as my watermark because it's going to follow the photo. And if I've uploaded low resolution photographs, then people aren't necessarily going to print it because they're not going to get the quality out of it, but they'll share it and hopefully not go to the trouble to crop out my web address, right?
Sure.
And I might get business from it.
So now it's marketing more so than protection.
Right, and that's just a different way of looking at it. And you mentioned the folks that are adamantly against watermarking at all. They tend toward the argument that from a digital perspective, images are, you can watermark them digitally with information. And then there are also visual mapping, or I'm not sure about the technology behind it, but you can search by image now. Google supports this, where it will find matching images or like images out there, so you can actually find where an image has been used as long as it's indexed.
Well, our friend Alex McClure uses a invisible watermark, which is embedded in the background and metadata and other things to protect your images. I forgot what it's called, Digimark maybe, or Digimark. Is anyone familiar with that at all?
No, but I use metadata all the time, and everything's keyworded, and you know that's how Google search, you know, finds your images and catalogs them, however that works. But yeah, I use metadata on all of my, and so my images are copyrighted straight out of camera. You know, the camera has a setting in there where you can apply a copyright, and that copyright automatically attaches itself to the raw files. I shoot everything in raw. And of course, I'm the only one who's ever going to have the raw file.
Sure.
So if I need to prove that the photo is mine, I can easily prove it's mine because I'm the only one who's going to have a raw file. The other thing is I'm really careful about what I put out there. I mean, if I know that a photo is absolutely spectacular, I'm not going to put it out there for the world to easily get their hands on. You know,
you can put it on SmugMug where it's right-click protected, or you can put it somewhere where it'll, like what Susie said, shrink it down to 72 dpi.
Yeah,
and
I will put it
quality.
at such a low resolution that
so 4:6 when they print
exactly. So I'm going to be, you know, I protect myself in that way. So, you know, if anyone who steals my photo, they're going to get a crappy, low-res JPEG.
If you're trying to protect their stuff, that's what I do. I used to watermark a lot. I used to have the big yellow watermark across the middle, but, you know, it slowly got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then I was like, oh, again, it's just a waste of time because anyone that small is going to just crop it out. Yeah. So I drop it down to 72 DPI. I make the longest edge 6, so it's like a 4x6 essentially when it comes out. That's printable size. And then I reduce the quality in Lightroom down to 50%. Now that picture they're going to get out of there, they're not going to be able to print it big like some of these printed. It's going to be, if they go big, it's going to get all pixelated. And if they steal it and put it on their Facebook page, who cares? You know, it's like,
you know, then you can have fun with them and just taunt them and you know, until they have to take it down.
Well, with all the stuff, like, isn't there programs out there now, like Facebook or Instagram maybe, that they're stripping the data off of everything? All your metadata get stripped out.
They can, but like I said, what do they really got? They got a low-res, crappy JPEG that, I mean, to me, I think that's even more effective than putting a watermark on there.
That's the way to protect it.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't like watermarks. I used to do it. It saves me time not to do it. You know, I put my stuff out there for my clients. I usually shoot for my clients. If I shoot for my own personal artwork, what are they going to get? They're not going to get anything of great value, you know? So I'm not worried about it. And if they steal it, they steal it.
Yeah. It's
I'm a photographer. I'll shoot more, you know?
So you have something to say, Sprague?
Well, yeah, Trey Ratcliffe, who's probably the best at marketing himself on the internet as a photographer. I mean, he has, millions of people that subscribe to his site, and he actually addressed that subject as well because, you know, his stuff is probably the most stealable because it's the most recognizable. And his take on it is he decided to put all of his work on Creative Commons, which basically says anybody can use it with credit back. If you want to buy it, license it, I have a vehicle for you to do so. And he copyrights all of his pictures that he puts up and basically says if they do use it commercially, we will catch them, we will sue them, and we do get our money. And he says you're going to have a certain amount of pilferage where somebody's actually going to take it and try and sell a few copies. And he says, you know, you just have to consider that you're going to have a bit of theft is just the cost of doing business.
Anything, you know, how many people have stolen Photoshop and over the years and software and every other thing out there, you know, there's fake everything that people steal, like purses, and they make fake Fendi purses. So everything is always being stolen. We're not, you know, special that people are just stealing photography. We're undervalued where people don't understand the value of what a picture is, so they have no problem stealing it. Or, you know,
they're getting very crafty too. There was an article recently or an incident recently that I saw postings on where a prominent news or prominent social news media outlet would embed the photographs in their articles of other photographers without giving credit, but they backlinked. So they made the image rather than, and maybe I said it wrong, they didn't embed the image or whatever, they didn't take the image itself. They're displaying the image as a backlinked item. So,
and it wasn't given to them.
Right.
Like Arizona Highways, people send those in.
Right. They didn't ask to use it or anything. They just went out on the internet, found the photographs, displayed them, and somebody tried to dispute it, you know, and ask to be given credit, etc., and got back kind of a nasty gram. And then it got to the point where the artist went to the image itself, the source where she had it posted, and just changed the image and put text overlay so that in the article or on that page, it now displayed the updated
See, we're
content.
craftier than you, thieves.
Yeah.
Well, that just happened too with our friends out there. A lot of friends with the Arizona Highways incident. Someone, a paint company, made a program that drew from other people's pictures, and it linked onto a bunch of blogs, including Arizona Highways blog, which we all submit to since we're in the Southwest here. And all the recent pictures that were used on there, at no fault of theirs, were actually lifted and put into like this chip program that showed you, oh, this room is cocoa and these other colors will go nicely with it. And they got no credit, and you know they had put this together. Their webmaster put together. There's no way that's one person went there for thousands of.
It was essentially advertising leveraged
and they got Pinterest. They were on Pinterest and other places. So there was all this stuff that was being taken, and none of the artists were given credit. So it had all the paint companies' info on there. So you have to be kind of careful with what you put out there and stuff.
Well, the other thing is, even the copyright laws will say that even a variation of your original work is still a violation of copyright.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if somebody takes it, modifies it, if it can be determined in any way a variation, then
Even when you sell an image that's like a high-end image that you sell, you can't sell variations of it sometimes under the different, however you set it up.
Plus, you got these, social media sites like Pinterest, where people are, pinning your photos, and eventually things get lost through the whole pinning system, and then it never actually gets back to you anyways.
Yeah.
And then if they're not outright taking your photos, then they're stealing the idea or the concept of the photo and trying to replicate it 100 different ways.
So in all of this, like, I have my stuff all over on all these social media areas. I have it on Pinterest, I have them on Flickr, and all this different places. I don't watermark it, I cripple it so it's small. Should new photographers and up-and-coming photographers, should they be worried about it? So I see it with newer photographers a lot, like I used to, with my big yellow watermark that's a Nicholas Papagella Photography, LLC, all the way across it, and it would take away from the photo. I'd look back at it again, I'd cringe, and then it got smaller and it got white, and then it eventually went out to the corner. Should people be protecting their work with that, or is it just futile?
I think it's futile.
I think it's a personal choice. A lot of times when people buy a print to display, they want the artist's name in the corner. It maybe, gives it
like a signature,
a little bit of a lineage or something like that, and provenance. Okay. And so I think that's important, particularly if you're doing a series. I think a lot of people
usually those are hand-signed prints, though, too. So, I mean,
you can do them digitally on the Wacom. The Wacom tablet, and, sign them and put them on there too, so you can do it both ways.
But for a new person, I think it's probably not as important. It's probably not as likely that your things are going to be stolen as somebody who's got more of a top line product, and so it's something to consider. But
so, Susie, do you think it's for someone out there more of a marketing tool or more of a protection tool?
Yeah, I think it's more of a branding and marketing tool, and should be used judiciously. Something that's not obscure, just not really relied upon from the standpoint of really deterring or preventing someone from borrowing your work without authorization.
So as we kind of summarize all of this, we're kind of saying that, okay, you're new out there, you're scared, you hear people stealing work all the time. Cripple it by changing the size, changing the DPI, changing the quality of it on editing in Lightroom and Photoshop and any editing program. You could shrink it down, make it a web-only version, maybe put your name in the corner. But when you have it right across the middle and people see it, they're going to skip over it, I think, because they're going to be like, I can't really see the picture beyond the big, ugly watermark. And it's not really protecting you anyway. Anyone with any Photoshop skills, if they really want that picture and they know how to use the clone tool, or don't even know how to use the clone tool, we can have a cat probably remove it. They have opposable thumbs, don't they? So anyone can remove this.
Well, sure.
Yeah, they don't have opposable thumbs. Oh, maybe an opposable thumb.
Yeah.
What's the chopstick cat?
Yeah. So we think it's something that, again, we all did, but I think it's time to maybe scale it back at least a little bit, maybe not drop it, do it slowly, wean yourself off of it, and maybe not do it right in the middle and huge, because it's really, unless, hey, if it's wedding proofs and you want your bride to say now, buy these images and not have her bridesmaids steal them all, then maybe it becomes useful now where you give them proofs and you print proof over it like they do. Because now it's like, well, you don't want them to go and just download them all and be like, oh, I don't need to buy your book. So it may become handy in that kind of situation, but not so much on social media.
I usually give my clients their images, and a lot of people are like, well, if you give them the images, then you won't sell product. But no, I sell the product too. I mean, usually it's part of the package deal. I mean, I'm selling, my whole philosophy is that everybody should have an album. So I'm selling albums. That's my biggest product that I sell is albums. But I also give them the digital files too. I mean, they pay for them. They have it. That's the way I structure my business is I'm combination of being service-based and product-based. I sell it both, but
we just had a great talk with Michelle Salentano about that last meeting. That was print, because everyone's like, here's a disc, and it gets put away. And my dad has thousands of videotapes of us as kids, and no one watches them ever again. They just get filed away where you see the pictures up in this room, and that's, print. Michelle says print.
Sure you print.
But I mean, so I don't mind my clients stealing them because I'm giving them to them anyways. And I don't, so... And then as far as the other thing, as far as marketing, I'm not so, particular about, putting my brand on every single image for marketing purposes, because anytime anybody goes to see my images, it's on a page that's already branded. The page is branded. I don't need to brand every single image on the page. Definitely. So, for me, it's just an extra step that I just don't.
Yeah. So inevitably, your stuff's gonna get stolen. Mine was just on a Sedona hotel page. Someone else told me about it. I put it on the news channel legally. I said, hey, you can have it here. They put the lightning picture up, and someone said, hey, your picture has been put somewhere else, which is the first time it happened to me. And I was kind of mad, but I went on there and I tagged myself in it and said, this is the photographer, because they swiped it off of it. They didn't share it. They swiped it off, re-uploaded it, claimed it as their own. Now they're using it as commercial purposes. But I didn't give it to them for that. I gave it to the news for that, which, got thousands of likes, and it's whatever. It's fun, but, you have to be careful. Once you put it out there on social media, it will get stolen. Protect yourself with reducing the quality of it, not with a big ugly watermark, is kind of what we're all saying, right?
That's right, yeah. And a lot of times, a lot of this stuff is going to get stolen in places like China and Russia that don't have the same copyright rules that we do, or any sort of bilateral agreements. And, that's going out to,
and you can't prevent that.
And there's really
in that case,
not much you can do about it.
Take it as a compliment.
Right, that's right. Well, not really. Yeah. Microsoft didn't take it as a compliment. But, unfortunately, there wasn't anything they could do about it. So
in summarization, we say, watermark lightly, tread lightly with that, and really, copyright your stuff. So look at the copyright laws. We'll do a whole episode on that. We're going to have Ruth come in and speak to our PAC chapter about copyright laws and how you can do it in bulk, where you can put 500-600 images at one time and put that out there. That's going to protect you. Sizes are going to protect you. Shrinking stuff is going to protect you. But these watermarks aren't for protection. They're for marketing, signing, advertising, and that's about it. Really, they're not helping you protect it. People are going to crop them out and get rid of them.
It helped only when people made copies with a Xerox machine, but now they can do it digitally.
Exactly. So, tell you a little bit about our sponsor. PAC is the Photographers Adventure Club. They're sponsoring our talks here, and they do photo walks, meetings, seminars, workshops, and photo trips and adventures. So check them out on photographersadventureclub.com, and we will see you next time. We're getting better at this. The look in the eye, I suppose. We're going to have a whole episode on cheers.